Confronting the Presidents. I found this collection of information coming from Bill O'Reilly's. Confronting the Presidents, George Washington created the presidency by restraint as much as by power. John Adams, a brilliant patriot, undone by pride and poor politics. Thomas Jefferson expanded liberty in words while wrestling with it in life. James Madison, architect of the Constitution, who struggled as a wartime president. James Monroe presided over national confidence and declared America's independence from Europe. John Quincy Adams, a gifted statesman too principled for popular politics. Andrew Jackson, a force of will who empowered the common man at a terrible human cost. Martin Van Buren, master politician overwhelmed by economic collapse. William Henry Harrison, a symbolic hero whose presidency barely began. John Tyler asserted presidential authority without earning public trust. James K. Polk expanded the nation more than any president in a single term. Zachary Taylor, a soldier president who avoided politics until it consumed him. Millard Fillmore tried compromise when the nation was past compromise. Franklin Pierce enabled division through indecision. James Buchanan watched the Union unravel and did little to stop it. Abraham Lincoln saved the Union and redefined freedom through suffering. Andrew Johnson sabotaged Reconstruction through bitterness and racism. Ulysses S. Grant, a great general betrayed by corrupt men he trusted. Rutherford B. Hayes ended Reconstruction to heal the nation, leaving wounds behind. James Garfield, a promising reformer, lost to assassination. Chester A. Arthur rose above expectations and fought corruption. Grover Cleveland, an honest executive in an era of excess. Benjamin Harrison expanded federal power quietly and effectively. Grover Cleveland, second term, returned to power only to face economic disaster. William McKinley led America onto the world stage through war and commerce. Theodore Roosevelt made the presidency a bully pulpit for reform and strength. William Howard Taft, a judge at heart, trapped in Roosevelt's shadow. Woodrow Wilson, an idealist abroad and authoritarian at home. Warren G. Harding, a likable man presiding over deep corruption. Calvin Coolidge, governed by silence and restraint during prosperity. Herbert Hoover, a capable administrator overwhelmed by historic collapse. Franklin D. Roosevelt redefined government while leading through a global crisis. Harry S. Truman made the most complex decisions with plain-spoken resolve. Dwight D. Eisenhower maintained peace through strength and discipline. John F. Kennedy inspired a generation before his promise was fulfilled. Lyndon B. Johnson advanced civil rights but destroyed trust through Vietnam. Richard Nixon, brilliant strategist, undone by secrecy and paranoia. Gerald Ford chose healing over punishment at high political cost. Jimmy Carter, a moral man burdened by global instability. Ronald Reagan restored optimism and challenged Soviet power. George H.W. Bush managed global transition with experience and restraint. Bill Clinton, prosperity and scandal in equal measure. George W. Bush, defined by crisis and war after September 11th. Barack Obama, a disciplined leader navigating deep national division. Donald J. Trump disrupted politics through force of personality and conflict. Joe Biden, a seasoned politician governing in an era of exhaustion and polarization. Here is a narrative from Confronting the Presidents. The American presidency did not begin with power. It started with restraint. George Washington stepped into office knowing the world was watching to see whether a republic could survive without a king. His most significant act was not leading armies or presiding over government, but walking away from it. In doing so, he taught the nation that authority could exist without tyranny. John Adams followed, brilliant and principled, but restless in Washington's shadow. He believed deeply in law and order, yet his temperament and the Alien and Sedition Acts revealed how fear can erode liberty even in a young republic. Thomas Jefferson, eloquent champion of freedom, expanded the nation through the Louisiana Purchase, even as his private life exposed contradictions he never fully resolved. James Madison, the architect of the Constitution, found that theory bends under fire when war comes. The War of 1812 tested the nation's resolve. James Monroe followed with a confident America, declaring the Western Hemisphere off limits to European powers, signaling that the United States had found its voice. Then came Andrew Jackson, a man of iron will. He reshaped the presidency into a vehicle for popular power, confronting elites and institutions alike. Yet his legacy is scarred by the suffering of Native Americans and the brutal cost of expansion. As the nation grew, its conscience fractured. By the time James Buchanan took office, compromise had lost its power. He watched the Union splinter and chose inaction. It fell to Abraham Lincoln, awkward, burdened, and resolute, to face the nation's most significant test. Lincoln did not seek glory, he sought survival. Through war and unimaginable loss, he preserved the Union and redefined freedom, paying with his life for the country's rebirth. Reconstruction exposed how fragile victory could be. Andrew Johnson's bitterness poisoned healing. Ulysses S. Grant, honest and heroic, trusted the wrong men, and corruption flourished around him. The presidency drifted through decades of industrial growth, political machines, and quiet reform until a new force arrived. Theodore Roosevelt burst onto the scene with energy and conviction. He believed the presidency should lead, not merely react. He challenged monopolies, protected natural lands, and projected American strength abroad. Woodrow Wilson pursued lofty ideals, guiding the nation through World War I while failing to extend them equally at home. Then the economy collapsed. Herbert Hoover, capable and well-meaning, could not stop the fall. Franklin Delano Roosevelt confronted despair head-on, reshaping government to meet human need while leading the world through a second global war. Power expanded, but so did hope. Harry Truman inherited a world on fire. He made decisions no president had faced before, ending a war with atomic force and drawing lines in a Cold War that would last decades. Dwight Eisenhower brought steadiness, warning of unchecked military power, even as he relied on it. John Kennedy inspired a generation with words and promises before violence cut his story short. Lyndon Johnson used raw political skill to pass historic civil rights legislation, even as Vietnam unraveled trust in leadership. Richard Nixon opened doors to China and détente, but his obsession with control led to disgrace. In the years that followed, presidents struggled to restore faith. Gerald Ford chose mercy over vengeance. Jimmy Carter brought morality, but faced global turmoil. Ronald Reagan restored confidence and challenged Soviet dominance, reshaping the tone of American leadership. The Cold War ended under George H.W. Bush, a steady hand in a shifting world. Bill Clinton presided over prosperity while scandal eroded dignity. George W. Bush was defined by September 11th, leading the nation into wars whose consequences linger still. Barack Obama governed with discipline amid deep division, expanding healthcare and confronting economic collapse. Donald Trump shattered political norms, energizing supporters and unsettling institutions through sheer force of personality. Joe Biden, a veteran of Washington, governs a weary nation, confronting polarization, global instability, and the limits of endurance. Through it all, one truth remains. The presidency does not change human nature, it reveals it. Each man confronted his moment, some rising, some failing, all leaving a mark. The story of the presidents is, in the end, the story of America itself, unfinished, imperfect, and still unfolding. When we talk about the presidents of the United States, we often speak in headlines: heroes, villains, winners, failures. But history doesn't live in headlines. It lives in moments, in decisions, and in the quiet weight of consequence.
Confronting the Presidents reminds us that the American presidency is not a gallery of heroes or villains, but a mirror held up to human nature under pressure. Each president faced a moment that demanded judgment, courage, restraint, or humility, and each revealed both strength and weakness in the process. History shows us that leadership matters, character matters, and consequences endure long after applause fades. The enduring lesson is not to idolize the office or demonize its occupants, but to examine decisions honestly, learn from failures as well as successes, and remain vigilant stewards of the republic entrusted to us.